Welcome to Failure. I'm Ryan Kavanaugh. Failure has failure.
Was my first failure. And thank goodness I failed.
Failure.
I know why you're a failure. Failure.
Next failure, a great failure. Humiliating failure.
Being a failure.
This goes back to the failure, your original failure. The failure comes full circle.
Going back to the failure. Utter failure.
Boom, total failure.
Yeah.
It's the story of failure. No, you're a failure. You are a failure.
This is a failure.
Failure in a way.
So you're a failure.
Failure to
My failure.
that is a lot of failure.
Your failure. There's a failure. There's failure. I hate the word failure.
Failure, and we focus on failure. Like they're a failure. They're a failure.
Failure until you give up. They're a failure.
Well, correct. This thing about failure.
Who's going to be a failure?
And failure is this fine.
A failure.
Failure.
That's a failure. Been a failure. Been a failure. A failure, but unsuccessful.
It's the definition of failure.
I felt like failure is a dark side of life.
Why we use failure. Say I failed. Admit they failed. I say it's failure, feeling like a failure. I felt like a failure.
Ryan Kavanaugh, are you a failure? Ryan Kavanaugh, are you a failure? Ryan Kavanaugh, are you a failure?
I am not a failure, but I have failed. I've also failed a million times. Failure has none. Failure has a father. The point of failure.
A failure until the end of your life.
Correct.
Failure. A failure. I'm a failure. Failure is just a bad word. I just dislike the word failure. Love this podcast. Hate the word failure.
Call it failure.
You're always going to be unsuccessful. Have to be a failure.
Okay.
Failure is perfect. You're a failure now.
Right now I'm a failure.
Right.
But right now, because
so
I
you
look
would have
back,
been wrong.
You're right.